The Hartley Show is an entertainment program and does not own any of the copyrighted material featured in this episode. All copyrighted material featured will be used as fair use for the purposes of criticism, comment, news reporting, and/or research. Taki. Today on The Hartley Show, I'm going to talk about Captain America Civil War. So, Captain America Civil War. Now, when I first saw it twice, my thought was, this is probably the greatest superhero movie of all time. Now, since the shine has worn off a little bit, I still love the movie. I still think it's fantastic. I think Captain America Winter Soldier slightly, I think I still prefer Captain America Winter Soldier to Captain America Civil War. But it's a phenomenal movie. I enjoy the hell of it. And one of the things I do want to address is a lot of the complaints that I've heard about it. I think a lot of them are kind of silly. One of the things that I find most interesting about Captain America Civil War is the difference between the people that get angry about the DC movie stuff and people that get angry about the Marvel movie stuff, or don't get angry in this particular case. One of the biggest complaints about the Superman-Batman movie and the Superman sort of take from Snyder and all that is people keep on saying DC hates their characters. They're all murderers now. But nobody seems to care that the Falcon's a guy who flies around with two guns killing people left, right, and center, that Captain America murders people left, right, and center, that Thor kills people, that Iron Man shoots missiles out of his arms and shoots people left, right, and center, that Hawkeye has gone from a circus performer to a government operative that eats a lot of cheese. I don't know, he probably eats government cheese, right? And kills people left, right, and center. The Black Widow, of course, when she was a spy, she killed people. But when she became an Avenger, she stopped killing people. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they've taken their heroes and made them more heroes and a little bit less superheroes. Now, I don't have a complaint with that, but I find it a weird level of hypocrisy that the biggest complaint, and there's mayhem in the background, people are destroying things, look at that. It's almost live, folks.
Just about.
But there's this weird level of hypocrisy that DC hates their characters because they show them killing some people and using lethal force, whereas at Marvel that's somehow apparently completely okay, that pretty much all of their superheroes have been completely militarized,
right,
and nobody bats an eye, that it's okay for the Falcon to wield two guns and blow people away all the time, when in the comics he's a social worker. So I find that bizarre. Again, I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with the hypocrisy, though. Hypocrisy.
I think where that probably comes into play, the reason why people are more okay with it with Marvel than DC, is Marvel has always had the reputation of being grittier, having more anti-heroes, that sort of thing. Whereas with DC, it was always, they were always the shiny, hopeful.
Agreed. Yeah.
With the exception of characters like Batman, what have you, but who even himself has always had that code against killing, which is one thing that continues.
Didn't always.
True, very true.
Batman and Superman in the earliest days were both not adverse to killing people.
True.
It wasn't until within the first 2 or 3 years they developed this code versus killing. And then eventually in the 50s, that became more of a hallmark of their characters. Batman and Superman don't kill, even though they used to not that long.
But one thing that continues to bother me with Superman, with Batman in film, in the comic books, he's very anti-gun.
Yeah,
but
he hates guns.
In the films, every one of his vehicle is always outfitted with guns, and he uses them constantly. And I think that, personally, I think that's lazy writing and not being familiar enough with the character. But anyways, moving on, we're talking about Civil War, not Batman.
We were talking about
Superman,
Civil War, but I brought up the topic. I brought up the topic of
That's
this
true.
weird level of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to compare the movies, because the basic thrust of the plot between Captain America Civil War and the basic thrust of the plot between Batman v Superman are pretty much the exact same thing. Now, big spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen this, Barry, you might want to plug your ears. Barry does appear to be gone right now. Is that in Captain America Civil War, the main plot is Baron Zemo is working to pit Iron Man against Captain America, and thereby doing that fracture the Avengers, because he realizes he can never defeat them.
So he's trying to destroy them from within.
Yeah. And then, of course, it's the same concept over at Batman v Superman. You've got Lex Luthor pitting Batman and Superman against one another in the hopes that they'll kill one another, which isn't the hope of Zemo. He's not hoping to have them kill one another, because he says in the movie, I know I can't defeat you. But one of the complaints I heard about this is that Zemo's plot doesn't make sense. I think it makes perfect sense. He sets up Crossbones to go and engage in some sort of terrorist activity where he gets some sort of virus thing, and he sets him up with a self-destruct switch, And at the point at which he goes to kill himself, he does it in a marketplace where there's tons of people all around him. So despite the fact that he's almost thwarted by the Scarlet Witch, he's not. And he probably would have killed far more people in the marketplace than he did when he was sent in the sky by Scarlet Witch. Later on in the movie, I've heard this complaint being that, how could he possibly have planned for Iron Man to go after Captain America on his own? Well, it didn't matter if Iron Man was on his own or not. The only thing he needed to do was show him that tape of the Winter Soldier having killed his parents to pit Iron Man against Captain America. I'd suggest that he probably thought he was going to have the government on his side. Actually, I don't even know why I'd said that, because he couldn't have imagined the Sokovia Accords would have actually been created.
Right.
But still, the only thing he needed to do was get them to that location and show him actually, all he needed to do was get Iron Man to that location and show him the tape of Winter Soldier having killed his parents, and then mission accomplished. So none of it seemed outlandish or ridiculous to me. But let me just say that one of the things I love most, actually the thing I love most about Captain America Civil War, is how they managed to take this massive cast and every single character in it is perfectly utilized.
Yes.
There's not one moment of wasted time in that movie. Every character isn't just perfectly, well, they are perfectly utilized. Hawkeye's whole thing about being the Avenger that nobody really cares about is like the ongoing joke throughout it. The moment where he meets up with the Vision or Black Panther, he goes to introduce himself, and "I don't care" is his response, which is kind of, I think the joke they're making is that people kind of, the general movie audience doesn't really care about Hawkeye. I care about Hawkeye.
But I agree with everything you're saying, because, I mean, you do, like you say, you have a huge cast in this film. And some of these characters didn't show up until partway through, like Hawkeye, like, spoiler, Ant-Man, a few others.
Or even bigger spoiler, Giant Man.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
But that not at any time did I feel like any of the characters were being shortchanged. Everyone was well utilized. Everyone had great screen time. Everyone had something interesting
even
to do.
Even Aunt May.
I know. Who, hello. She was
Marissa
great.
Tohoot. What?
It was a little jarring to see Aunt May so young, but
but us fans that read Ultimate Spider-Man, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Ultimate Spider-Man, she was kind of younger and kind of hot, so finally it was the nod of the hat to the Ultimate Spider-Man take that really cemented Spider-Man as a teenager. And I mean, what a great take on Spider-Man. One of my favorite scenes in the movie was when Tony starts talking to him about his motivations. They make it really clear, we're not going to give you another origin story. There's that moment where you expect him to talk about the death of his uncle, and with great power comes great responsibility. Doesn't happen. And I thought that was brilliant. One thing I wanted to bring up was, I've heard it addressed that why is Giant Man, when Ant-Man turns giant, moving so slowly? He's not.
He looks to the naked eye like he's moving slower. They did the same thing on
and
Legends.
he's moving relatively slower.
Yeah.
I think it's called the law of scaling, where the bigger something.
Physicist.
I'm not a physicist, but I've read about it online. And scaling, the concept behind it is basically it's a way to understand how I think bumblebees can fly with their little dinky wings that we thought once didn't work with physics. And the bigger things get, the more the gravitational pulls on them differently. Gravity pulls on them differently. This is why elephants have knees that move backwards, and why they don't really run, they kind of trot.
They clump.
And I think there was, I read a report, and there's all sorts of really cool books that have been written about the science of superheroes and how physics relate to superheroes, and how generally comic books get it horribly wrong. But one of the concepts is that one of the notions of how big a human being can get, I think science says we can get about as tall as 20 feet before gravity would just make us collapse within ourselves. Our bone structure couldn't handle it. But there's really interesting notes too that, I think they address this in the Ultimates, that if you get to a certain height, your relationship with light changes with your eyes. That too much light can get in your eyes and you wouldn't be able to see. So there's all sorts of physics stuff that it makes sense when you're talking about a guy who's wearing a suit that protects him from all that stuff.
Yeah.
And not to mention though, I'm just going to say it, there might be kids in the head fuck. It'd be a giant head fuck with your relationship changing, with size and all that stuff. Because it would feel like you're moving slower, even though you're not moving slower. Yeah.
Speaking about physics, though, I love how they use Spider-Man to kind of be like the audience member for a moment. We're talking about Cap's shield. Fantastic. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but that was hilarious.
Yeah. And I guess what I really wanted to say is what I love the most about the movie is its utilization of all the characters, which then culminates in the best superhero action in any comic book movie.
Final fight was amazing.
Ever. Not to mention just all the action in
Yeah.
that movie is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite moments in that movie is when Captain America kicks a guy. He kicks a truck to hit a guy.
Yeah.
That scene is genius, just
Yeah.
absolute genius.
The-
He moves perfectly, that shield bounces all over the place and hits guys. But we finally got a movie that gave us the ultimate big superhero brawl. Now, what we really need to see is a movie where you've got, a superhero team versus a supervillain team
Yeah.
and have a big scrap. I don't think we've really had that accomplished yet. But Civil War was the first step in that right direction, what comic fans wants to see. Like, it made me realize we could finally see Kingdom Come actually happen.
That'd be awesome.
But like a baby step away from the grandiose majesty of superhero fights. And let's be honest here. And people always go on about, why are the superheroes fighting? Because damn it, us fans want to see them fight. It's
Exactly.
the biggest superhero trope of all time. We want to see Superman fight Batman. We want to see Captain America fight Iron Man. It's just the way us comic nerds are wired.
Yeah.
So, all in all, Captain America Civil War, absolutely fantastic. Yeah?
Yes, and can I just take a second to say how awesome Black Panther was?
Oh, Black Panther.
Amazing. He was so good. Favorite part of the film.
Yeah.
I can't wait for his solo
He
movie.
was genius. I agree with you 100%. Oh, and let me just get out this one little point before I wrap it all up here, which is, I think this will be actually my wrapping it up. I've heard a lot of people complain about Captain America supporting a mass murderer. He's not supporting a mass murderer. He's supporting his best friend that was lost to him for decades. Well, I guess in his perception, just years. Who was a pawn. He was a brainwashed guy. The fact that people keep on forgetting that blows my mind. How do you not understand that the Winter Soldier wasn't of his right mind? So there you have it, Captain America Civil War. Me and Troy talking about it. As always, thank you for watching. Thanks to Taz for letting us film here. And we'll see you next time, I hope. And don't forget to subscribe to us, eh?